Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to transform your headliner from this into this. Alright, so here's the kit I decided to go with. It's called NightGlowe. It's an 800 star kit. It has two separate looms. So the big reason I went with this kit is because it has two different channels. So you can actually do two colors at the same time, which is pretty cool. So each of the looms will get its own color. You kind of have to mix them together. Comes with its remote and then two adapters and an AC to DC adapter as well. This is the shooting star module. So it comes with the module, of course, and then it's a 12 LED system. So this one has 12 different lights in its sequence. So it's just like, yeah, sequential. And then it has 60 extra strands that you use for those stars. It comes with its remote, and then these are the little connectors I use to connect the fiber optics to the module itself. So yeah, it's a pretty cool kit. Here's the Starlight module in motion. So you can see it's just a sequence of LEDs. So first things first, we have to remove the headliner. So we have to remove all these handles, the sun visors, all these lights, the A, B, and C pillars. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so removing the sun visor is pretty simple. It's just two T20 screws and then this one connector. So once they're out, just unclip it. And now I like to put the screws back so I don't lose them. We can take off the light, it just clips out, and unplug it. Alright, so we can move on to the grab handles. It's a pretty cool design. You just flip down these covers and then it reveals the two screws and it holds it down too, so you just get those off. Moving on to the sunroof controls. So you just grab your trim tool and just pry it off. It comes off pretty easily. There we go. So once it's off, we can disconnect the connectors and move on. So removing these lights is a little easier. There are two metal prongs, so you just push them in and it pops right out. There's one right here and then one right here. On both the A and C pillars, there's this airbag cap, I guess. You just pop it off with a pick and it reveals the screw that you need to remove. Alright, so now that we have everything else off, we actually have to remove the sunroof glass. So this was surprising to me, but there are 12 screws all along here that hold the headliner in. And also to get to this sun visor or cover, we need to remove the glass. So it's pretty simple to remove. You just pop off these dust covers. There's one on this side. And it's just held in by two clips. So there's one right there and then one over here. And then up here there are three screws. Here, I'll show you on this side. So once we get that cover off, there are the three screws. So with all the sunroof bolts removed, you'll see that it's gone down a little bit. So you just put your hand through the bottom and then you can lift it out. And now we just need to remove 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we have access to these 12 screws that we need to remove. They're T10s. Once everything's removed, you can see it's loose. And now it's just being held in by one Phillips head screw. So when we remove that, everything's just going to come down. Okay, so we have the headliner out. It wasn't too difficult. All you have to do is put your seat, the driver's seat, all the way back and all the way down. You can fit it through this little gap. Before we start with the install, we need to figure out where to actually put the light motor. So we can maybe run the strands down through here. And this is what it looks like under the actual shelf. So there's this little gap. Here you can see a little better here. So I was thinking of running the strands down through here. We can cut through the foam and then the light motor can just sit here. There's also airflow, so it should be a good place for it. Starting with the headliner, you want to mark it out into different sections. So I'm going to do 8 sections. I have 6 right here, and then I'm going to add 2 more just at the front up here. Let's just break that down the middle. Okay, so we have 400 strands per bundle, so we have 2 bundles of strands. So in total we have 800 strands, right? So we have 8 sections, 800 strands. It only makes sense to do 100 stars per section. So that's what I'm going to go with. Here's what the fibers look like. So they're literally just threads of plastic. And the idea is that we're going to poke holes and we're going to send these through. So I've gone around and marked off 800 dots, so 100 in each section. You also want to hit these plastic pieces too. And these different foam pieces, you want to put stars in those, otherwise you're going to see empty spots. Same with these plastic pieces here, you just drill holes through them. But around the visor, the sun visor, it doesn't really matter because you're not going to be able to see it, so you can just leave those empty. But yeah, just make sure the stars are evenly spread out and the density is good. So to drill these holes, I'm using this very, very tiny drill bit and this Dremel tool. So now we have to drill these 800 holes. It's pretty easy. You just go pop, 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 and it goes through really easily because it's literally foam. So we're going to break these up into 50 strands. So we're going to do 8 bunches of 50 strands and separate them. Alright, so it's all separated. Honestly, it doesn't have to be exactly 50. It doesn't really matter that much. So I just got around 50. So I have 8 big bunches of 50 strands each. So now we can just run 1 bunch to each section. Alright, so the shooting stars have 60 pieces, and they are actually thicker filaments or thicker fibers than the rest. So we're actually going to be needing to use a larger drill bit, and these will be much brighter too. Actually, it'll look really cool. Alright, so change of plans. Instead of doing 1 big one, I'm going to do 2 smaller ones. So from here, where the X's are, up to here, and then that one there going that way. I think it'll just look better with 2 instead of just 1 big one. Alright, so we're going to have to separate these out into 5 strands, like 5 strand bunches, because this only has 12 lights, right, and we have 60 of these. So each light is actually going to get 5 strands to it, if that makes sense. So we're going to take them out, we're going to label them 1 through 12, just so when we install them and then we plug them into here, we're not going to get them mixed up. Alright, so to attach it to these little things that go into here, I just put the strands through, I crimped it on, and I added a little bit of hot glue in there so it holds the strands in. And now, when the hot glue dries, we can just snip this off. And then the light will directly go into the fibers. So I'm done making these bunches. So each bunch has 5 fibers in them, so there's 12 in total. I'll label them too. Alright, so to secure the fibers, I'm just using this black hot glue. I actually got this glue off Temu. I think it was $10 for 50, so yeah, it was pretty cheap. So yeah, we just put the fibers through and then just put a dab of hot glue on top of the fibers just to secure them in place. So the way I'm going to run 2 shooting stars off of just 1 module is by taking the bunch and splitting it up. So I'm going to take 2 of the strands and put it into the shorter shooting star, and then the other 3 are just going to go into the longer one. So that way I can run 2 shooting stars just using 1 module, and I think it should look pretty interesting too. Alright, so installing the strands is very simple. Just grab your strands, find your hole, and you literally just pull it through. Alright, and just keep doing that. So you can just get it started from the top, and then you can come around to the bottom, and you can pull them through. And when you've got your strands pulled all the way through, you want them to be really flat. So pull them tight and then grab your glue gun and just put a dab of hot glue on each of the strands. Continue holding for another 10-15 seconds until the hot glue cools down. And then that's it. You guys are good to go. Alright, an hour later, I'm done all of the shooting star filaments. Alright, so to cut it, again, we're just going to be using these flat cutters. You can see it's flat on one side. And then literally just get close and snip it off. Alright, so have them all cut up. Now you can see the shooting stars. And here's what it looks like when the lights are on. So you can still see the holes, obviously, but you can't feel anything. So that's really important. You want to make sure that everything is flush. And this is what the module looks like when everything is plugged in. You can see all the labels there. So you can see this gets overwhelming really quickly. There's so many strands, they're all going in different directions. So your best friend is going to be tape here. You're going to tape off the separate bunches and route them where they're going. You can see I did the same thing with the shooting stars. It just makes it simpler and easier to follow. Alright, so I'm finally done separating the second loom into its separate. So this one I made into 9. This one I'm going to split one of these up and make 9 and 2 instead. Right now it's 8 because we're going to save 2 for the sunroof cover part. We're also going to do that. So what we're now going to do is grab one from this loom and then one from this loom, and we're just going to run them together. So we're just going to tape these together. Right, so I have them all running together now, and what's cool is that if you set the lights to green and purple, these two colors, you can clearly see which loom is which. So when you go to install them, you can make sure everything is mixed evenly. Alright, so I have the first section done. You can see it's nice and organized. It's very easy to follow. And you can kind of see the spider webbing effect that happens. And this is what it looks like from underneath. The excess length just hangs down. Here's what it looks like after it's all glued in and cut up. So again, everything is nice and smooth. It's all even, but it took me a long time to do. It took me about 2 hours just to do this section. Alright, so about 12 hours later, I'm finally done. This is what it's looking like. So where the strands come in, it's pretty difficult to make organized. It's just going to be a mess. But the rest, it looks pretty good. It's not too bad. And the most important thing that you need to consider is to make sure everything is kept flat. So some people, they like to leave the strands kind of fluffy, and you don't want that because when you go to install the headliner, it's going to be really difficult to make it sit flat with the roof, right? So just make sure everything is nice and flat and everything is tight so it doesn't give too much trouble when you're going to reinstall it. Alright, so here's what it's looking like from the other side with everything cut and everything being complete. So you can see the density of the stars is actually very nice. There aren't any dead spots or empty spots. So yeah, it should look pretty good when it goes back in the car. Okay, so the sunroof cover has all the holes drilled in. You can also see that the fabric is starting to peel on the cover, so which is less than ideal. Looking back, I probably should have rewrapped everything in Alcantara. But that's okay, it's probably too late now. But the holes, you have to drill through metal, so it's actually pretty difficult. So before we reinstall it, we just want to clean it up a little bit too. So ultimately, I decided to move the location of the two modules down into the trunk. And this is for 2 pretty good reasons. So first of all, the module actually produces a decent amount of heat, and this foam acts kind of like insulation, so it doesn't allow the module to cool off. Second of all, it's very difficult to get to, so if anything were to go wrong, it would take hours to replace. Alright, so to route those 2 looms of fiber optics for the sunroof, we're just going to push it up through here. There's this little gap and a rubber seal, and I'll hold it in place as well. And then we'll just push it up through until it gets to where it needs to go, so around there. Those are just fingerprints from the foam. It should expand back out. So when installing this loom for the sunroof cover, we want to mount this loom to the cover because this goes back and forth, right? So we need to make sure that's secured and it doesn't kink or get ripped off. So here's how the sunroof cover looks like when it's done. So I just put a lot of hot glue on the entrance of the loom to hold it in place. You can see it moves back and forth, no problem. And make sure that everything is really flat here because the sunroof glass is going to be sliding over it. Alright, so now we just have to cut all of these and reinstall everything else, and then we're good to go. So here's what it looks like when the sunroof cover is done and the headliner is on. You can see it slides in and out, no problem at all. And the loom gets kind of tucked in behind it. So I'll also show you guys it opening with the glass too. So everything moves slowly, there's no weird creaking sounds or anything like that. Yeah, you can see it literally works flawlessly. Alright, so wiring the system is pretty straightforward. The kit comes with these 2 extension cords. And then I also picked up this fuse tap. So this is a very useful device. One fuse is for the system we're tapping into, and the other fuse is for our Starlight kit. And then I'm just going to be tapping the power from our cigarette lighter. So that's on when the car is on. Installing the fuse tap is very, very simple. You literally just plug it in. So here's that fuse for the cigarette lighter. It will be on when the car is on. And now this wire will have 12 volts, and we can just run that to our 2 modules that we're powering. So here's the wiring harness that I made. It's a really simple harness. So these 2 are the outputs, what are going to plug into the modules. And then I have my ground as well. So my ground is just a little connector that I'm going to screw in. And then this is what the fuse tap attaches to. So this is going to be our actual 12 volts for our power. Here's what it looks like, everything installed. So the ground I just mounted to the anchor, sanded off some paint, and the power is just running up, zip tied, attaching to our modules. And I just zip tied the modules in place. I don't really see a better way of doing this. But yeah, overall it's a pretty clean install. So here's all the trim pieces back installed. Everything is very clean, nothing's hanging out, you can't see anything. You couldn't even tell that there was something installed back here. So this is the app to control the modules. So it controls both the shooting star and the light motor. So you can go in. It's just like your any other RGB LED app. But this one, it has 2 channels. So you can use L1 or L2. So for example, if I want to change one of the channels to red, then I can leave the other one white. Or if I want to change just one too, I can change it to any other color. Or if I want to change them all together, I can just change them all together. So now they're all the same color. And of course you can change it to absolutely any color you can think of. These are the different modes. So this RGB fade, it cycles through different colors on both channels at the same time. And then we can go to sound mode. This plays according to what the sounds are around. So it synchronizes to the sounds. Then this is your twinkle effect. So you can change it from speeds 1 through 4. So this is speed 1 right here. You can see it's very slow twinkles. And then this is speed 4. So you can see there's a lot more twinkling going on, I guess. And then finally we have your shooting star. So there's a bunch of different settings for the shooting star. So if I change it to, I guess we'll try 20. You can see it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth. And there's another one. There's a bunch of different settings for it. And then you can also change the speed too. So this is max speed. You can see how quick it goes. And then this is the slowest speed. You can see how slow it's going. So yeah, that's the app. There's tons of different settings to play around with. And there you guys have it. That's how you install a custom Starlight headliner in your car at home. So as you guys saw, this is a pretty labor-intensive process. It took me about 3 days to complete, and I was working non-stop pretty much all 3 of those days. So if you plan on doing this yourself, make sure you have enough time off. So maybe do it during a long weekend or something like that. But overall, it's very simple. It's pretty easy to do. But yeah, so if this is the first video you're catching of mine, please consider subscribing. And if you feel like you've learned something new or interesting, please drop a like and comment down below. See you guys in the next one.